Wahaha, I am still in the Zoom call.
right. We're getting into some tunes. This is the sounds of Subdialect. You're not really supposed to talk over the drop, though, are you? I'm just pulling a few things together here. Get started in a minute. See, now's where I can talk. You're not supposed to talk during the drop. Yeah, this is some tunage I made. Oh boy, like 11 years ago, 12 years ago. Still trying to get back to making some music. That tone in the background, that's actually me and a friend who were singing. We just sang one note and yeah, reverbed it out. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Monday's leftovers, Sundays leftovers, aka the Lundi phone, the good stuff, scraping out of the pan, that caramelized goodness. I didn't do a stream last week. Apologize if you were looking for it. I opted to go learn how to milk cows instead, and really glad I did that. It was a great experience. So the people that run the dairy down the road, they all had to leave for the weekend, and that's a big deal when you're managing a bunch of cows and the dairy. And yeah, so I asked if they needed help, and I went ahead and got trained up last week, and I put in some shifts. And hey Matthew, give me a sec. Well, somebody said my video's frozen. Anyway, I wanna bring on a guest here in a minute, doing this live. But yeah, I put in some time milking cows. It was it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and I did. This is more than a minute. Maybe I can play it after our guest joins us. But yeah, I pulled some video together, put it to music today, got it all fired up, ready to play for you all, because it's good to have cows around. I've come to find out, depending on what you want out of life. All right, there's hang on, there's something going on with the video. Big shout out to producer Cody, who's been helping out with the Grand Theft World podcast and facilitating a much smoother stream. Oh, that may be why the audio was kind of low. Let's see. Apologies, Matthew.
No problem.
I'm trying to do something complicated. All right, so the audio should be a little louder. Anyway, without further ado, yeah, got a good friend with me. Haven't talked to him in a long time. Let's see if this works. Almost. Wow. Yeah, doing it live, huh? I'm lost. That kind of works. Let's go with that for now. That looks interesting. Matthew Raymer, welcome to the Monday Sunday leftover stream. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, LD. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Well, it's a weird year for me. We've been struggling really hard since 2020 to get content safe off the ground, and it seems like we're picking up traction. And it's just gotten, normally in my business, if you don't secure a big project by October, you're going to be living off savings until March or April, because generally nothing comes in between October and March. But this year, it's just been more and more and more opportunities. Each week, it seems like we just get more and more and more stuff to do. And we're not quite where we need to be to hire more people. We need a little bit more money to hire some people, but we have also been letting some old crew go because of performance issues, and that's kind of piled work on top of me to pick up the slack on what they're not doing.
I hear you. Hey,
But
well,
that's good. Yeah, I mean, it's all good. I get stressed out, but it's all good.
yeah, I yeah, I've been getting into the entrepreneurial journey myself over the past couple of years. You've kind of been involved with that to some degree, worked with you a little bit, and yeah, it's not easy to say the least. And you've been doing this a long time, so forgive me, I didn't really give you a good introduction. Um, but I'll show the website, and you want to talk a little bit about what you do with Content
Sure.
Safe?
Sure. Absolutely.
So, well, yeah, you can check it out at contentsafe.co. You work with a bunch of people in the freedom-minded community and beyond, content creators. So tell us a little more about Content Safe and what you guys do over there.
Well, in a nutshell, we are a video redistribution service. And what that boils down to for content creators is we take work off of their plate. There's a lot of alternative video platforms available for content creators to distribute to, and we distribute to all the major ones and some of the minor ones. And we're constantly trying to innovate and come up with different tools to help content creators get their messages out and to keep their content platform somewhere. And we're also involved in a lot of projects that are in the privacy space, in the cryptography space. I'm involved in a project presently with a guy in the States it's not a cryptocurrency, it's an actual privacy app. And that's something I've been doing on the sideline because it's something I've really been passionate about, wanted to be involved in something which could be to some extent a game changer in the privacy world. And I think this app has the potential to be that. So yeah,
I think I know
that's
the
what
one
Content Safe does.
I think I know the one you're speaking of. I did a little work for them as well. I was just saying, I have that video I made on your website.
Well, actually, it's a different group in competition to them.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah. And what I like about this group is, one, they're smaller than the group you're talking about. It's a self-funded project at this moment. They're not getting investors, but that they plan to get investors. What we're doing is we're building the first app. And what I like in that relationship is we're actually involved in the development of the app, and we're not just consulting with them. And they do one thing I really like, and that is there's no cryptocurrency attached to their app.
Gotcha.
So, and in fact, with the recent loss, I mean, I figure that battle's not done, but the loss of Odyssey to the SEC, it's going to be a chilling effect on any app that tries to tokenize.
I haven't followed that too closely. What's the status with that?
They lost.
In a nutshell, they lost.
Yeah, they lost, and the SEC wants them to they want them prosecuted for illegal fundraising for a security, a financial security. So I guess they want to monetarily penalize and maybe jail Jeremy.
Wow.
Yeah, they're going after him. That's why. And in fact, I said this to someone the other day that I'd actually been telling people for a couple years, don't tokenize your apps. Because this is where I knew it was going to go here. And what we need to do is, if you want to utilize a cryptocurrency, do it the way that it was originally intended to be done. It needs to be done outside of the system. It cannot be something that we use the stock market and that we file all of our paperwork. That's not the way this is intended to work.
Right.
And we have to go back to that. this was a 6 or 7 year redirection into a direction that the original community, the Bitcoin community, did not really want to go into. But they got drug into it by people wanting to make $1 billion or $1 trillion off of Bitcoin. And then they're probably just going to flush Bitcoin. Or at least try to flush Bitcoin.
Right. I've not been as much into cryptocurrency as I know you have, and our mutual friend Cody. You all have been running a mastermind. What was I going to say? I mean, well, at least Sam Bankman-Fried is in prison now, right? Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that this morning, but I'm a little skeptical about what that means exactly,
Right.
because I see this as a deliberate instigation to discredit the cryptocurrencies and to try to get people to not be interested in them anymore and to justify regulation. And then they'll just regulate them out of existence, or they'll try to regulate them out of existence.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I've been wondering, if this is headed towards a just demanding people clamoring for regulation and then ushering in the Fed coin.
Right.
And I
well,
mean,
the Fed coin, I think the launch of the Fed coin is in 2 days. There's already some bill that was passed earlier this year and signed off on that kickstarts the whole process. You're not going to hear a whole lot about it from media. But whenever you do start hearing about it next year, it'll probably be incentive. This is just my guess. I don't really know. I would say it'll be incentivization. So they'll be figuring out ways to convince people to use it.
Right.
But there is a lot of pushback. I've been reading that businesses don't want the Fed coin. So there's actually more opposition from the business community than the private citizen level.
Well, that's encouraging. Yeah.
Yeah.
Understandable.
The problem is that the forces behind this don't care about money. They care about power. And if it costs them $1 quadrillion to get everybody on a Fed coin, they're going to pay $1 quadrillion to get everybody on a Fed coin, because that's just what they want. And that, I mean, I'm not trying to be black-pilled about this. I'm just trying to be real about it. That
sure,
that the time, the ease that we had at resisting this kind of thing. One of my oppositions to digital currencies has been the ability to make them accessible to everyone. We're not there yet. And I don't know how long it's going to take the networking to get to the point that it would be practical that everybody everywhere could have access to a digital currency and they could pay for everything with digital coin. It's not there yet. And I suspect there's probably trillions of dollars of infrastructure that has to be done to allow somebody out in, Podunk County to be able to pay their utility bill with a digital coin, or to buy their Cheetos, right? It's just not there. And I often will tell people, and in fact, you remember, were you in the same group that there was the guy from Finland? What was his name?
Jarmo.
Yeah, Jarmo. I was talking to Jarmo earlier this year about this, and he actually agreed with me that the most digital countries in the world are Sweden and some of the other Scandinavian countries. I've had the pleasure of visiting Sweden in 2019, and I really loved Sweden. It was great. Talking to the people in the countryside, and they're like, no, we don't pay anything with credit cards here. We pay everything with cash.
Yeah.
Because even in a country that well connected, they have connectivity issues, and they can't rely on using that as a means of paying for things.
Yeah. And where I've been living, I mean, there's a lot of cash trading hands out here, and
Mm-hmm.
it's different because I came from California, where especially post pandemic, I was there at Home Depot when they're like, oh, no coins,
Mm-hmm.
and all the directions on the floor and
Yeah.
plastic guards and stuff. But yeah,
Same thing here. Same
yeah.
thing here. In
Um,
fact, you know that I didn't probably ever tell you this, but here, within the first 3 months of the lockdowns, they were already proposing trial cases of digital currencies local to the city I'm in.
yeah.
And luckily the public just laughed them. They laughed them away. They like, are you ridiculous? How do you know how difficult it is to get internet access on our part of town? And you're going to propose that we pay for things with a currency that requires the internet? So yeah, I'm not I'm not black pill, but I'm not I'm not exactly positive
Yeah, and
exactly how this is going to go.
you were talking about the infrastructure stuff, and I was thinking, oh well, Elon Musk and Starlink. I mean,
That's not there yet either.
it's
You
not
know, no,
not
and
yet.
it's a few years probably down the road.
Yeah.
It's not. You know that last year, the year before, they lost 30 or 40 satellites on a launch.
Hmm.
It was the first time it had happened, but it was through a solar storm that they lost a bunch of satellites because of that. And you're going to see more of that because our magnetic field on Earth is weakening. So we are more susceptible to solar storms. And we've got a solar maxima coming up in about a decade, I believe it is. And that's going
Oh
to take out a
yes,
lot of satellites.
that stuff is humbling to ponder.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it, if it's as extreme as some have suspected, uh, it would mean the end of the idea of globalization. But at the same time, it could also mean the end of civilization. So, uh,
Maybe that's the great reset coming. That nobody's
yeah, well,
nobody's
it
talking
would be
about.
a great reset that goes way beyond anything that anybody on this planet could handle. There's,
Sound,
I
sounds like
know we talk. Go ahead.
sorry. No, I was just gonna say sounds like God's reset or something like that.
Well, I just got interviewed on a Christian show yesterday, and we were talking about Georgia Guidestones.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, they said it's suspicious that there hasn't been any more discussion about that. And they were, very much like, well, we figure it was someone that just went there and blew them up. I'm like, there's no evidence that anybody put any charges on there. I've looked at the video, none of it's convincing. And the actual explosion time doesn't really make sense with an explosion. It makes more sense to be lightning than an
Really?
explosion. Yes, absolutely.
Because isn't there video? Somebody pulls up.
Nah,
No, that was sort
there
of the
is, but
narrative,
none of it's definitive. And why don't they show them planting a charge?
right?
They show someone walking up, they see a car, racing away, right? Like, well, why couldn't you show us? From what I understand, that had dozens of cameras around.
Yeah.
So why did we only
He was-
get one narrow particular view that doesn't really tell you anything? Nah, I think it was lightning.
Wow.
And they're like, well, why do you say that? I said, come on, guys. Really? This is a Christian podcast, and you're asking me why do I think that lightning is preferable? Mm,
Interesting.
uh, yeah. Well,
Yeah, I haven't looked too deep into that.
I only looked the week it happened. And
Mhm.
I watch a show called Suspicious Observers, and they are not Christian at all.
Mhm.
They're not religious. And they were like, nope, it's lightning.
Oh.
Yeah. And they based it on the flare in the lights at the time of the explosion, because the street lights flared. Like, what detonator will cause a street light to flare? That's not how detonators work.
Yeah.
But an electrical disturbance in the air could cause streetlights to flare through induction.
Oh wow. This is
Yeah.
juicy. I didn't expect this. I like it.
I always try to not disappoint.
Yeah, well, it's great to talk to you. It's been too long. And yeah, you're my second interview here on this leftover stream.
Well, I like
Well,
the Eddie. The Eddie interview was great.
thanks for checking it out. Yeah, that was cool. I was really happy he reached out, and I think we had a great conversation.
Mm-hmm. But see, Addie's quite smart. And what I like about the way you interviewed him was you actually pulled things out of him, which was great. I mean, you have as a hat tip. I don't think I could have done that. I might have actually made him say less, right? But you got him to say more,
Well,
which is good.
I did, yeah, I did get some practice going through the autonomy course, but I haven't, I've always felt like, I didn't do a lot of practice, but I've had a lot of practice listening and working with Rich and Tony. It's a challenge to get a word in, so I'm very strategic, and I've gotten, I listen a
Yep.
lot, and then I throw in a little bit, and of course it's usually yeah, adding a little comedic color or insight, hopefully, or just fact checking. No, sometimes I help them remember names, which is, it feels good. But no, thank you. But before let's not get carried away with that. I'd let me get some help from the audience. I had a question from Manel Family in the YouTube chat. He's wondering what you were doing before starting Content Safe, and what led you to start it. But yeah, maybe you could talk a bit about your background, because
Sure.
you've done some
Sure. Depends on
fascinating
how far
stuff.
back you want to go. But let's go back to college, because I think that's probably the first place that I had any inkling about the importance of something like Content Safe. In graduate school, the mid 90s, I had a professor come in one day because we received a National Science Foundation award. So we were one of the first rural universities to have internet. And we took advantage of it to the hilt. And I had this professor come in one day and say, they can't keep this internet open. It's going to have to be censored. And I remember that. And I remember thinking at that moment, no, we don't need it to be censored. We need it to be open, because being able to gain access to information is too important. It outweighs any risk of slander or any other type of risk that you would imagine. The open access to information is essential, right next to free speech, because they're related to one another. Move forward, I went to Southeast Asia. I still got involved in things like distributed tech. I was involved in the early BitTorrent software, and I helped a project out on that. But then later, I got involved. I worked for, I actually worked for the man for about a decade, and I did consulting in the anti-piracy world, which actually convinced me even more that governments should not be in control of stuff like this, because it's ridiculous. Some of the things I learned while it was in that industry. I learned because we were one of the first ones to propose using AI's machine learning to monitor for pirated goods. So one of our partners in Britain they cooperated with the Intellectual Property Office and the police to raid fake merchandise. So we were helping write Bayesian selectors to try to ID people on Amazon that were selling fake merchandise. And I learned that you can't rely on machine learning to determine absolutely whether something is pirated or not. Even though you might be able to look for keywords, it really requires a human who understands the industry to be involved. And any sort of AI needs to be a tool used with a human or a team of humans to ID definitively that something is piracy. But I got laughed out of the room. I actually talked to the head of Microsoft anti-piracy, and he laughed me out of the room. He said, there's no way that we could ever use a human to do this. It has to be an AI. And I'm like, no, there's no way you can use an AI to do this. You're going to get too many false positives. And I'm right. I'm still right. There are reasons why there are teams of people at these companies that are involved in this, and bots are only like for the low-hanging fruit for censorship. that's the low-hanging fruit, the easy stuff. But trying to rely on them exclusively for thorough censorship is just going to cause political issues. Well, around 2010, I encountered Alex Jones, and I got increasingly convinced that not only was I right about censorship, but all the things I had heard as a child, because my dad was an OG conspiracy theorist in the 1980s. He was telling me whenever I was 15 or 16 that the bankers control the world. And he was naming the Rothschilds and the Warbirds and, all of those plans by name. He was saying that in 1985. And I was like, nah, Dad, that can't be. I was very much a geek normie at the time. Right. I encounter Alex, it red pills me. Then I encounter Corbett and Richard. At that time, I started making downloads of podcasts and redistributing them on BitTorrent. So I did Mark Passio, very early Mark Passio, before episode 100. And I think I got on board at episode 60 or something like that.
Well, did you go back to the beginning?
Oh, yeah. I actually watched it all. I did the one thing he said don't do. I watched it all in reverse.
Yeah.
He doesn't like it when people do that, but it didn't, the only bit of skepticism I have about Mark's work is I'm not really on board with the whole alien thing. But that said, I will not dismiss his work because I think he has done a wonderful work. So, I started doing that. And after, say, about 2015, 2016, I was like, actually, I'd gotten into YouTube at that point. And I was like, well, actually, this would be great if you could get people on these alternative platforms off of YouTube in anticipation of censorship. So I started writing code for that purpose. In 2018, I believe I talked to Richard in 2018 about this very idea in an interview before autonomy. I think if you go back, you might find an interview where I bring up the proto concept of content safe. It wasn't even called content safe yet. And he's like, that actually sounds like a really good idea. So I took that as a positive motivation to write more software. And by 2019, we had our first version written. And 2020, I decided that I scrapped the whole first version because I had contracted it out to one of my senior developers. And while it worked, It was too fragile. It failed to, if one thing failed, the whole thing failed. It wasn't scaling well. So if you had a lot of clients, it couldn't handle it. So I needed to have a new architecture that was more flexible, that if one thing broke, the rest of the system kept going, that it could scale to thousands, potentially thousands of customers. And that's what we have now. We have a system that's scalable and anti-fragile. Now that's my history.
Yeah. No, fantastic. It's been an honor getting to know you over the past couple of years, and of course, you mentioned autonomy. So you're a graduate of what season did you join autonomy? Do you remember?
It was 2020. What seasons were in 2020?
So 3 or 4,
Probably 4.
spring or
then.
fall. 4.
I was in
Okay.
fall. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense because I was working on some video stuff for you over the summer in 2020. And
Yeah,
then,
you did. You did the editing for our commercial for Content Safe.
Yeah, maybe I'll play that.
Sure.
Play that after you hop off, or do you want to see it? You want to check it out right now?
Oh, sure. Knock it out there. That's great.
Okay. Yeah, this is early video editing. I did. It doesn't want to go full screen. All right, let me give it a try.
You're a successful YouTuber and podcaster, and big tech has been playing dirty with you and your friends for years. They've been getting nastier, removing videos, vague community standards, shadow banning your videos from your subscribers, removing subscribers without them even knowing about it, and even taking down channels. Full-on censorship. Is your media team working to stop all of that nastiness? Are they distributing your content on alternative platforms that are censorship resistant? Are they monitoring all of your videos, channels, and subscribers to make sure your videos stay where you put them? Are they making sure your subscriber growth is consistent? Are people looking for you able to see your notifications and find you when they search for you? Does your media team have a plan to repopulate your videos on alternative channels if and when YouTube takes them down? Dude, do you even have a media team? Content Safe is your bodyguard that protects your work from the big tech giants who would rather see you silenced. Content Safe will distribute, monitor, and repopulate your content for you. Let your media team focus on helping you make killer videos and podcasts, best of clips, and eye-popping graphics. Let Content Safe handle the rest. Visit contentsafe.co to learn how you can become censorship resistant and get your message out to the world.
Whoa, I haven't watched that
commercial.
for a while.
Yeah, good commercial. Very, very good commercial.
Thanks. Yeah.
So how's the farm?
The ranch is it's doing great. It's buried in snow. I helped do a bunch of plowing. I learned how to run a skid steer on Friday and worked for a couple of hours, and then I spent 4.5 hours yesterday pushing snow around. So another guy had a tractor with a plow on the front and a plow on the back, and he was just plowing, moving a bunch of snow, and then I was going around pushing it up into big piles. And there was more today while I was sleeping in because I went to bed at 4 a.m.
Did you see the email, the article by Ernest? Yeah.
No, but I did want to bring him up because I just messaged him earlier, and looks like he's flying into DC tomorrow morning. Which article are you talking about?
He messaged me before I got up and shared a post that he put up on Freedom's Phoenix about the story of what was going on. And he didn't even have to show up in court. He got to DC and he got to the hotel. He went to the court and the court was locked.
Really?
Yeah. And hold on. I might be getting part of that story wrong.
Well,
it was.
Are you talking about
in
earlier?
DC. Okay, he said, yeah, because I skimmed this, so I might have messed up some of the order that things happened. But okay, he said, okay,
Are you sure that's because I thought he was flying in tomorrow?
he's flying back home. Let me.
Oh, I see. Yeah, the message says I leave DC for Phoenix in the morning.
That's right. Okay. I appeared at 9 a.m. and the courtroom was locked. Called Department of Justice and was told that the court was rescheduled for 1:15 p.m. and was asked if I still intended on claiming Fifth Amendment protection. I responded, yes, see you at 1:15. I ordered an Uber back to my hotel and received a phone call from the DOJ stating that they had just made an agreement with the defense team and that I was no longer required and I could go home as early as today. I asked if I had to wait. I asked if I had to wait for media reports to find out what happened or if I could tell me what happened. They said, got to wait. So we'll post on Freedom's Phoenix when we know.
Okay.
And, yeah, here's the thing about that. This is all related to, and I'm speculating, okay? January 6th stuff is going out of fashion. So this may just be the tail end, and he's just really lucky that he wasn't really considered significant enough.
Right.
And he's lucky he didn't walk inside the Capitol building.
Well, he was at the Arizona State Capitol on the bus.
So they got him just because of the program.
Yeah. Well,
that interviewed people that were involved.
Yeah, he talked to Ed Vallejo and to Stuart Rhodes.
Okay.
Ed Vallejo on the day of, and then the next day, and then interview with Stuart Rhodes at some point. So
yeah, I see a big pivot coming. A lot of this stuff is going to fall into the memory hole, I think, and they're just going to try attacking from a different direction. Because I don't think that this whole thing worked as well as what they thought it would.
Well, yeah. What do you think? I mean, how about these infrastructure attacks that have been happening in there? And it was a really pathetic attempt. I saw. I don't know if I saved the article, but there's probably many such examples to look at where it was ABC or CBS talking about this thing in North Carolina, and the story, it's talking about these two separate attacks or vandalism, destruction of power transformers, and a bunch of people without power. But in the story, it mentions, there was a protest against a drag queen story hour or something. Like, who's pulling that together? How is that appropriate in a news story to put that in there?
One, did it even really happen? Two, if it really did happen, was it Fed involved? A lot of this stuff is just pure nonsense. It's just trying to, either intimidate people who are against the establishment or encourage people who are pro-establishment. And as far as debilitating infrastructure, okay, now let's think about this for a minute. What's easier to watch? A bunch of people on Facebook or a bunch of people who don't have even power in their houses? It's a lot easier to watch people who are online. There's really no motivations to knock out infrastructure to the country. It's really just not the advantage of the establishment to do that. You could do it for a limited period of time, like say during a protest or some sort of violent action to try to prevent coordination. But overall, you can't maintain it much. You can't maintain it more than a couple days, maybe 3 days at tops, because then you don't know what's going on anymore. You're flying blind.
That's a good point. Yeah, so I was wondering if this, could be some isolated accelerationists,
Could be.
somebody of that ilk.
Yeah, could
Um,
be. You know that Andy has said that there's only 800 Antifa in the whole country, which tells you that there aren't really that many people that they've gotten. There's probably a few thousand more that are in other organizations, but there really aren't that many people on that page. And a lot of this is psyopery, trying to convince people that there's a lot of opponents whenever there actually aren't.
yeah. Well, that's encouraging.
It doesn't mean we
to
should take our guard down.
So, yeah, exactly. Right.
And a lot of our problem right now is the fact that we got too comfortable. My generation, at least, I think that we were very pro-establishment, even though we didn't even realize we were.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not exactly white pilled. Let's just say I'm gray pilled. I think that we shouldn't back down. We need to be thinking out. We need to be thinking in a non-linear fashion.
I agree. I mean, I believe in, I suppose being cunning and ruthless in our
Sure.
in our aims, because I believe we're on the side of righteousness and humanity. And
There's no reason why we should play fair.
yeah.
And that's why I'm like, my hat goes off to all the people who vote and people who use courts. I'm like, I'm not going to get in their way. Maybe they can accomplish something over there with that. I mean, that system has to some extent worked, but that doesn't mean that the rest of us should just sit back and wait to be hauled off into a gulag. Which, to be honest, I don't think it's going to happen. The only way that we're going to have that happen is we consent to it. So non-compliance, not violence, non-compliance is the way forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had some conversation. Oh, sorry. I've had some conversations with a mutual friend in Kentucky there that's part of the psyop, is that they want you to think we're going to get rounded up and kind of the fear porn out of China, but that's all it takes. That's the fear of that and getting you to comply because of it.
Exactly. And I think I know who your friend is. He's my friend too.
Well, I had him on I had him on last week. Adam, he's listening in on the road.
Who was it? He was thinking to do a show himself with somebody to talk about psyops.
Yeah, we've been talking about it. He did a little teaser when he came on. He wants to call it 37 Foxcast, and basically go through the grammar, kind of break down terminology and help people understand what they're facing when they go on the internet, step into the battlefield of social media, and learn to recognize what's being directed at them, or how they're being directed through just certain efforts. War.
Yeah, I really enjoy talking to him. He's a good guy, and I think he's spot on about a lot of stuff. I know that he and I compare notes because he's actually trained in that world.
Yeah.
What I learned was from people that were part of that system. Because whenever I came here, there's a lot of people here who are retired military.
Yeah.
And one of my friends here, I often don't call expats friends. They're just people I know. But I had two that were really, I would call them friends, because they were, they stuck by me through 20 years of living here, and they taught me how to function here. And one of them was probably a field operative for the CIA whenever he was younger.
Mm.
And I learned immense amount of things from him just by sitting and talking over coffee and him recounting things that he'd been involved in and done. And a lot of them line up with the stuff that our friend says.
Yeah.
And the other
And
guy was a NSA operative, field operative.
I've got an NSA friend here where I am. It's interesting talking with him. He's also he's a flat earther.
Really?
Yeah.
That's great. That's wild. That's wild. This guy was a telco guy, and he kind of tipped his hat a couple times about which, because they never say I was CIA or I was NSA, or at least these guys never did. They were very circumspect, but the things that they would tell you would tip their hat about what they were. Because there's this island in the Atlantic, which is really, it was I forgot what the name of it was, but when Napoleon was exiled the second time, he was sent there.
Off the coast of West Africa. Yeah.
Yeah. I've forgotten the name of it though. And I brought it up over coffee one day because I've watched a documentary on it. And he said, "Oh yeah, I've been there." I'm like, why have you been there? And he said, "Oh, there are listening stations there. I have top level security clearance. I've been there to install telco equipment." Okay, this guy's NSA or was NSA. And then the other time was, you remember the room for Prism, the NSA Prism program?
Yeah.
I think it was William Binney that talked about that, right?
Bill Binney, yeah.
Yep. Before I ever met Richard, I was sitting in a Starbucks with this guy. His name was Robert. And we were talking about that release of Bill Binney. He's like, "Oh yeah, it's true. I've seen the room."
Yeah.
He said, in the AT&T building. He said, "I've been there." Yeah. That's very true. It's absolutely no doubt. That's true.
Is it St. Helena? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I believe it was. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thanks, Andrew Fishman.
And the other thing that before I met this guy, I was actually on the fence about 9/11. And he was one of the ones that kind of pushed me over the edge, because we were talking about like, well, what do you think about all this? And he said, "Well, I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing. I've been in the Pentagon over 100 times, and there's no way a jet could have actually made it to the Pentagon."
Oh yeah. I have a good friend here that I've hung out with at times. He's a pilot, and he's done a breakdown on just a analysis of the data, and it's it's nonsensical. They're 757. You've got ground forces basically. So at that speed, the ground is, for a pilot to do that would be
impossible.
Insane. Yeah. So you've got ground force pushing the plane up. The faster you go, the greater that ground force is, I believe. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but the turn is too perfect. It's just there's way too many anomalies with that. It's nonsensical, and it always frustrated me that my dad, who was a TWA pilot, and this had a big effect on me. I don't think I've talked about it on here yet, but really want to get into it someday. But the TWA 800 in 1996 was a big deal. I was 11 years old.
Yep.
And he was in touch with a bunch of people that were in the air. He flew with people that were there, talked to a bunch of witnesses, was in contact with them. And, 9/11 came along, and he actually was on the 79th Street Marina pier with a friend. And they watched the second plane hit, and that was it. Case closed. bomb Afghanistan, he was all for it. And I get as you get older, it's harder to look back at the past and accept that things may not be what you believe they were.
If you break through, for me, the critical age was about 40 to 42. And I think if you can break through before the age of 40, then I think there's really some hope that you'll change your mind.
Yeah.
But I had the pleasure, I have an editor in Britain that I've worked with him since 2005. And he was I wouldn't exactly call him establishment in his viewpoint, because he had been educated in the 60s. So he did have an anti-establishment vein in his thought, but he was very trusting of the BBC, very trusting of the medical establishment. And over the last, 15, 16, 17 years that I've known him, he and I have I've actually convinced him he doesn't take flu vaccines. He didn't take the COVID vaccine. And he's like, see, how old is he now? 70. Yeah, he's 70 years old, and he's basically red pilled at the age of 70. So it's possible. It can happen, but it wasn't overnight. and he at least had some bit of skepticism before that.
Yeah. It's my mother, well, I don't want to, my parents are older, and we've talked a bit about that. Hey, I had a couple, if we could shift back a little bit.
Sure.
I did have a couple more questions from our listener Manel. He was interested in hearing more from you about how you believe AI has developed since you first started working with it.
Well, it's improved. Definitely, it's improved. It's more efficient. It can be. We have sufficient equipment and memory to do some really incredibly impressive things with machine learning. But we underestimate just how much complexity is in the higher animals in their neural networks. The level of connectivity that we have in the human mind is just not an order of magnitude, several orders of magnitude more complex than anything we can accomplish in hardware or software.
Right.
We should be wary of AI. It's dangerous, but not for the reasons we're often sold on that danger. I don't have a whole lot of faith in killer robots. I think that the worst type of drone now is the flying type. Those are actually quite effective at being killing machines and having longevity, the ability to stay up and mobile. But these sort of crawling robots that you see on the ground right now are completely ineffective and will not go anywhere. Honestly, I don't think they'll go anywhere. So where would I say the real danger in AI is? The real danger in AI is twofold. One, it is the perception of capability. We're going to see not too long, if not already, people appealing to machine learning models to make their decisions. So they'll say, well, the AI says this is the best path to take. Well, there's no open, transparent revelation of the data that was used to come to that conclusion. So really, they can just claim that an AI made the decision when in fact it was a human committee that made the decision. Yeah.
Yeah, and just attribute mistakes or
Right.
malfeasance to oh, that
Yeah.
darn
Yeah.
AI
That's the
again.
real danger in all of
Mm.
this. And the other real danger is us taking these things seriously and putting credibility on it when we really shouldn't. AI is a great tool, but one, if you're going to trust it for public policy, there has to be absolute transparency. All the data sets need to be revealed. All the algorithms need to be revealed. And there needs to be critical examination, and no decision should rely on AI alone. It
Right.
just shouldn't happen. And we should dismantle everybody's faith in AI. And, I know I hear people say, well, you don't know what's the hidden tech, you don't know what's possible with the hidden tech. And I'm like, well, at best, what I think an AI could do now is it could match the intelligence of a human being. And I don't even think it can do that.
Right.
And a device of a scale big enough to exceed human intelligence would be so large that the delay in time in signals moving around in that box would make the machine very slow. It wouldn't be able to think as quickly as people have been sold on. Like, I remember many years ago, I read an article that said, oh, China has a supercomputer now that can do 50,000 computations per person on the planet per second. I'm like, that's not enough computations. 50,000 is nothing. It needs to be 5 trillion operations per person on the planet to be able to model the planet, or 50 trillion. Modeling interactions is extraordinarily costly in terms of energy. We learned this in physics because of modeling gravitational or electromagnetic interactions. They call it the n-body problem. N being like a generic number, any number of entities. Once you get past 3 bodies, the math becomes so complicated that you have to simulate it. And simulations are only good within a certain time span. It's a great tool, but it's limited in what it can do. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the other question was kind of related to what you just said, because you're talking about enormous infrastructure and energy cost. But Manel was wondering how much storage does it take to manage all the content creators material that you're working with Content Safe?
It depends, per creator or just overall.
It seems like I'm guessing he was saying overall, like how much data are you managing?
At the moment, we're still within about 20 terabytes at the moment, but we don't have hundreds of creators. And we have a plan for handling this. There's a lot of available disk space out there that's unused. And we have a plan for scaling that should allow us to go up to a petabyte or more.
Wow. 20. Well, yeah. I mean, 20 terabytes here, 20 terabytes there. Pretty soon you're talking about real big numbers of data, right?
Yeah. Wow. And that's why the other project I'm involved in is called the Pirate Box.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And that's going to allow. Yeah, right. Tom and I meet every week. It's Tom's baby, but I'm like just the technical consultant. He runs ideas by me.
Yeah.
And it's a great idea. It's got a lot of potential to scale this and create something like a community-run content distribution network.
Does he have a website up?
Yeah,
is it Pirate
I think it's Pirate Box. Yeah, that's right.
There we go. Okay. Yeah.
And And this is
Pirate
something
box
that,
and
you know,
stick.
people getting involved, and this is going to be important. We need to, once the boxes are out, we need people to come in to seed the network. And what we're working on together are strategies for helping content creators build communities that are self-propagating.
Yeah.
So in other words, the creator gets a box, he uploads his videos, and then there are tiers of supporters who also have boxes. And even, you know, if you don't want to buy a box, just set up a computer, because it'll all be open source.
Yeah, I still have a pirate box card somewhere. I think it's in California right now, but I have a oh my gosh, I'm blanking on it. What's the kit? The Canon kit.
Raspberry
Raspberry
Pi.
Pi. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've got one of those. I got to work on it one of these days. Yeah, I need to get that set up. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, you know, these types of sessions where we talk about this with the community are really important. That's something I've been telling Tom. If you want this thing to get legs, you got to get out and pitch it.
Yeah.
And a lot of, I kid you not, there are hundreds of projects over the last 20 years that have launched that are in the privacy, anti-censorship space, that they go nowhere. But some of them are actually good ideas, but they go nowhere. Why did they go nowhere? One, because not enough community involvement. You got to get people involved to get feedback, not just contributing to the project itself, but actually using the app so people know what needs to be improved.
Right.
And a lot of this stuff, if it's distributed, it really depends on how many people are using it.
Yeah. More data points.
And harder to stomp down on. Because we've even talked about, like, you know, is there a device you could just put on a battery, put it in the ceiling tile in a Starbucks, and have it piggyback on a Wi-Fi? You know, just ideas like that. Well, you know, there's a lot of creativity and a lot of brain power out there in the community. We can't think of all of it. We're not that smart.
Right.
So it needs to be a community project.
Yeah. Well, I hope I can maybe help to drive some more interest in that. You know, it would help if I put the thing together and got it online and understood it.
Yeah. And there are
step.
new versions coming out.
Okay.
What we're working on is not only IPFS, but we're trying to add what's called Scuttlebutt to it, which is a distributed chat program. And we're also trying to add a distributed search technology called YACY. That's YACY. And that way we could have all the elements of a community in one box. So you could help seed a search network. You could help chat with people privately, and you could also share files.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, well, that's the goal.
That would be perfect for the Grand Theft World community with all the info people share in the Discord server. We're getting ready to move off of the Discord server, and I think there's a beta. Have you been helping with that with the
I've
platform?
only been involved at the fringe. We were
Yeah.
originally proposing Matrix, but they went with Circle.
That's right. Yeah.
My opinion is that they're going to regret going with Circle, but you know that you gotta move. It's better than Discord.
Yeah.
But moving to something more decentralized is probably better. But again, the cost is training, getting people to understand how to use the software, whereas Circle is going to provide an easy on ramp.
Right.
It's all a matter of trade-offs.
I'll definitely miss all the emojis and gifs you can drop in Discord, but I've been given too much money to Discord just to help everybody have extra fun over the past couple of years.
Yeah. You know, the whole thing with Matrix could do everything Discord can do.
Yeah.
But we couldn't get enough people to help us test it.
Oh.
So that goes back to the original problem. Are there enough people with enough patience to actually try out this technology that is decentralized?
Yeah. Yeah, it takes some commitment. And I recognize just in the workflow, just doing the Grand Theft World podcast and all right, figure out how to do stuff. And it's dependent on a lot of stuff that probably would rather not be using, but to re-engineer that takes time
Gotta
and
start
thinking.
somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, for sure.
It's like using BitChute versus using YouTube.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be using YouTube. We should be on BitChute or Odyssey or, you know, something like that. But you get new blood on YouTube. Well, kinda. You know, if you're not shadow banned and nobody can find you because you don't show up in anyone's feeds. That's what Content Safe, one of our goals is to help with alt media, help with the new platforms. I'm actually going to be talking to Rockfin soon.
Oh,
and we
cool.
might be collaborating in some way.
Interesting. I know they get a lot of grief in the chat sometimes.
Well, I did hear that they put Owen Benjamin back up though.
They did. It was okay with Martin, and it happened.
Yeah. I actually talked to, I forget who it was. It was either Scott or somebody I talked to last week about that. I was pleasantly surprised that they put Owen back up.
Yeah, that was a funny thing back in April. A big blow up. Oh yeah, because he did a show with Sam, and they're reeling back and forth at each other.
I saw that. I saw that. I have a problem watching stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple upstate New York guys yelling at each other.
Yeah, to me it's kind of cringy to watch stuff like that. So I don't really like watching cringy stuff. But
yeah,
you know, they worked it out, and it's good. It seems like it's good, at least for now.
I'm trying to get in touch with Owen. I mean, I've sent a few super chats recently, but I think I have too many aliases, and I haven't written a letter. Made it clear, but he's very close to where I am, and even closer by air. So trying to get some people in touch with him, and Curtis Stone. Curtis Stone's like 3 hours up the road in Kelowna, and the people I'm staying with are really interested in meeting him and checking out his operation, seeing what they can pick up from him, because I mean, they already follow him and have learned a bit. But yeah, we were talking about doing microgreens the other day, so they want to get that going at some point. They have 4 greenhouses, but they're not warm enough for the microgreens. So that would be something in a basement setup, I think, in one of the new buildings that they're working on.
I tell you, the one thing that I keep telling people is we need to stop thinking of ourselves as a minority community. We're not.
Yeah.
We're actually a majority community. Our strength is also a problem. Our strength is that we are community based, and we tend to stick with the people we know. That's good. it's good security culture, and it's good for human health because you need to be relating to real people, not to potentially virtual people. But on the other hand, you lose a wide scope of just how many people there are like you. You tend to think that you're the only ones. Anybody who knows biblical terminology, biblical stories, there's the story of Elijah in the cave. Have you ever heard that?
I guess I'm not as familiar with that one. You could.
The prophet
See.
Elijah is fleeing from the priestess of Baal, Jezebel, because Jezebel's out to kill him. And he goes to a cave and he prays out to Yahweh and he says, I've served you well. Please just kill me. And I'm the last one. I'm the only one that hasn't bowed his knee to Baal. And God comes in a dream and says, what are you talking about? There's 1,000 more just like you. So get up and do your job. We need a kick in the pants. There are a lot of people like us. We just don't know them. And you know what? We don't need to know them. We need to focus on what we know and just keep doing what we're doing and do it more.
Yeah, I'd agree. I got to go to a Reawaken America tour event back in September or October down in Post Falls, Idaho. And that was an interesting group, and it's a very MAGA centric crowd.
But very eclectic.
Very eclectic though. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
It almost had an atmosphere of like a tent revival thing.
This is Clay Clark, right?
Yeah, Clay Clark and General Flynn. He came by and tapped me on the shoulder. It was kind of funny. I think he liked the beard. I don't know. The dude from Atlas or Attila's Gym, I can't remember which.
Oh yeah,
in New
Atlas
Jersey.
Mm-hmm,
Atlas Gym. He was there and he spoke, and then 3 different people were like, "Hey, was that you up on stage?" Like, "Oh no. that wasn't me."
Miriam, was it Miriam Heinen? You know her?
She wasn't there at that one. And,
well, I know she promotes it though.
Okay.
Strongly. I've distributed some of her videos for that.
Yeah.
Because she's a content safe client. And I'm actually, reaching out to people in what I call the Trumposphere.
Yeah.
And I found that, man, these guys, some of them have already taken the red pill. And you can kind of just see that they're where we were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So they're questioning 9/11 and we're like, and do you also know about this? They're all anti-lockdown, anti-vaccine. Do you know about this? And I appeared for 3 hours on one of the shows yesterday. And it was a blast. So these guys, I don't worship Trump. I was skeptical of Trump from 2015. But okay, if this is what it took to wake up, okay, I'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was I met a lot of good people, and I could see there's a lot more people to talk to that are receptive now, especially after the past couple of years. And that was the unifying thing. The frontline doctors, the election integrity people.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the MAGA crowd, a lot of pastors, and overall it was uplifting because, if you we don't talk about it as very much on Grand Theft World. I'm more inclined to embrace, like, we're in a spiritual battle,
Mhm.
And I'll, yeah, I don't want to throw any shade, but it's like when you get down to it, logic and reason, yeah, we need that to operate. We need to hone those skills and use our brains. But at the end of the day, I mean, when things get really tough, like there's a little something more to it that has to be there has to be room to talk about that or
See,
embrace
this
that.
came up in the call yesterday,
Yeah.
and I try to leave, as I've told. There's a podcast I'm supposed to go on soon. They're called. It's a friend of Scott Armstrong. He's a hermeticist, but his co-host is I wouldn't call her former Christian. Maybe she still is a Christian, but she's very skeptical, I think, of establishment churches. And as I told them, I said, I tend to be a little circumspect about talking about my own spirituality because I generally like to keep it in a generic way, because I've just experienced too much vitriol and hatred and prejudice from everywhere I go. I'm not talking about just the Christian community. I'm talking about the atheist community, the agnostic community. Like, I just don't have time for arguments.
Yeah.
And I tend to talk in very generic languages. But I know a lot about the Christian history, and I know a lot about the Bible. I mean, I grew up in a Christian home, so I know a lot about it. I know more than the average bear, let's say.
Hmm.
I would dare to say I don't know as much philosophy as Jay Dyer, but I know the Bible better than Jay Dyer does. Because I disagree with him on when he gets talking about the Bible. I have to shake my head. But
Oh.
I'm not interested in debating about it. But definitely, I couldn't hold my own on philosophy. He definitely knows more than I do. Anywho, I think we should be. It's not that we should be accepting everybody as right. I don't. I don't think that that's correct. People can be wrong. But my money is more on everybody being wrong than any one particular person being right.
Right.
Because we're just limited beings and we don't know everything. And we need to be continually learning, continually reassessing our assumptions.
Indeed. I agree with that. Sorry, I'm distracting myself. I
No
wanted to
problem.
get your name in put your name up here in front of people. Gosh, what else did we had some great questions from Manel, and I think we've had a great discussion. Anything else you want? Oh yeah, you know what? Because you mentioned you've had to kind of part ways with some people, so I wanted to give you the chance to put a call out there. If anybody knows somebody that knows somebody with the skills
Yeah.
you're looking for, how
Yeah,
do they get
thank
in?
you.
And yeah, tell us a little bit about that and how they can get in touch with you.
Well, what we're looking for, and I do have someone in mind, but I don't know how far they want to engage with me. So I still need to keep talking it. Let me just describe what our system is like. If you, you can contact me at matthew.raymer@contentsafe.co if you're interested. But here's our technology. So if you can understand what I'm talking about, we need to talk. We work with Docker. Docker is a virtual container environment. Each one of our services is a Docker container running Alpine Linux. We use Python on 99.9% of all of the stuff we write. There's some chance that we might need some front end stuff in the near term for administrative purposes. Our data layer is Redis. We don't use SQL. Even though I'm trained, I took database design classes decades ago, and I'm trained in SQL, but over time I've drifted away to something a bit more flexible. Redis has been just a godsend in what it's allowed me to do easily. We leverage that for queuing and for messaging and a variety of things in all of our software. We use a lot of virtual hosts. I have a relationship with a company that gets me really cheap virtual hosts with lots of disk space on them for cheap, and that helps us out tremendously. And if any of that sounds like someone's cup of tea, fine, contact me. Let's talk. We are limited in our budget. We're still soft launched, so we're not actually getting monthly revenue off of this yet. We're getting one-time payments off of our initial 50 or 60 clients. They just pay us once and we service them for life. But we're soon moving into getting monthly payments on our clients. And once we get that, we'll actually be able to hire someone or somebody's part-time or full-time. And well, we're also involved in other stuff. So there is a chance if we were to work very well with someone, there is a chance that we could utilize them for other work, such as the privacy project I mentioned earlier. And I actually have a project that I helped someone plan the project 2 years ago. And they asked me what I wanted to build it. And I gave them a number and they disappeared for a year. And this morning I get an email from them offering me 4 times what I had offered to do the project. And I'm like, oh, okay. She said, but I haven't raised the money yet. So she's offering me actually a quite nice budget to build a project for her. And it's in the it's an application for barter. And it looks promising.
Excellent. What's yeah, tell me that email one more time.
Matthew, that's with 2 T's, dot Raymer, RAYMER, at contentsafe.co.
Right on. I'll throw that in the show notes too. And well, before I let you get out of here, because I'm sure you got a lot to get to, but I had one more question.
Well, lunch is coming up.
Lunch. All right. Yeah. Biscotti had a question about cryptocurrency. What
Sure.
and how cryptocurrency what was it like and how was cryptocurrency traded and accessed in early years? I think that's the question. And how does it compare and contrast to the current day?
Okay. At the very beginning, before Bitcoin was listed on a stock exchange, there were crypto, exchanges where you could buy Bitcoin with dollars, but there wasn't like FTX or Coinbase or anything like that. It was all the community itself would do the trading. So if I wanted Bitcoin, I knew people who had Bitcoin, and I would either give them money or I would sell them something in exchange for Bitcoin. And that's how the original community was formed up. It wasn't really about exchanges, which are where you get regulated. It was about community level exchange of goods for Bitcoin. And we need to go back to that. In fact, that's going to be our only option, because they're going to have to provide full KYC. The only way I could see these exchanges that we currently see still existing is if they're outside of US jurisdiction. And then you've got a problem. How do I buy something in Southeast Asia from an exchange? How do I send the money? How do I do that? And of course, what these foreign exchanges will probably do is they'll say, well, the US has said that they won't let us have anything in the US unless we collect information about American citizens. So they'll get you that way, that you're going to have to provide full KYC. Know your customer, personal information. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And it's good perspective because it's just insane. I was glad to know, like, I'd never heard of FTX until all that went down. It's like, well, good. And I wouldn't say I was an early cryptocurrency adopter, but early enough that, I read about Ross. That's what clued me into it. Read about his story in 2012, I want to say, maybe 2013. And I kind of got it, like, I think I got it from, I guess, kind of the libertarian approach to it, the safeguard against the fiat currency scam,
right?
The Federal
And
Reserve scam.
You've got Bitcoin, but you also have Bitcoin Lightning, which I saw that you're set up to accept Lightning. And I think that is going to be what is a game changer. But it's going to take, again, adoption, people using it. And then there's also a crypto called Dero, Dero, that people should be looking into. Dero is a smart contract based cryptocurrency similar to Ethereum, but it's a privacy token, like Monero. So you can run smart contracts, but in a network that anonymizes traffic.
Yeah, I am set up to receive Lightning. I don't think I have yet. And
who to talk to about that maybe is Nick Schaup.
Okay.
Nick, at least the last time I talked to him, which has been a while, he was working for a Bitcoin Lightning company that was promoting the use of Bitcoin Lightning.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I should check in with him.
Yeah, ask him why I missed our appointment last week.
Okay.
And Nick's a good guy. I'm just busting his chops a little bit.
Yeah, what was I saying? Well, anyway, I would love to see some more integration of that stuff, value for value options for the Grand Theft World podcast. Because I've been kind of studying the No Agenda show, and I'm sure it helped that Adam Curry, had 50 million people watching him on MTV. But he's super. He's a smart dude, and he's been. I mean, he helped develop podcasting as it is now, and so there's a lot to look to there. Not to copy them, but hey, here's a system. Here's how you set it up, and facilitate or make it easier for people to support you and get involved. So, well,
yeah,
thank
absolutely.
you so much.
You're welcome. And just perfect timing. My daughter just gave me the signal that I have to go eat lunch.
Awesome. Well, this was a real pleasure, Matthew. Thank you so much for coming on.
It was great. And I'll try to drop me whenever you get new shows and new people to interview. Just drop me a link and I'll try to watch.
Will do. Thank you so much. Go check it out at contentsafe.co. And Matthew's email will be in the show notes. Thanks again, Matthew. Shoot. Okay. Enjoy your lunch, and look forward to talking to you again sometime soon.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye. Woo. Fun with Zoom calls. All right. That was awesome. I haven't talked to Matthew for a long time. We message back and forth because he helps with some back end stuff, with Grand Theft World. But hope you all enjoyed that. Sorry for the technical chicanery. Let's see. Let's get back to the Milkin. Milkin' It. That's a silly title. What do you think? It should make sense, but it sounds bad. I'm not trying to milk it here. All right. Let's see, is that oh geez. Oh, this stuff got all out of whack. Wah, wah, wah. I don't even know how to fix that right now. Okay, screw that. Just turn off the fancy colors. Oh, it's not even coming through to you guys. You don't see what I'm talking about. All right. So that was real fun. Matthew's a good guy. Let's see what we can get into. So, yeah, I didn't do a stream last week. I opted to go learn how to milk cows, and that was a rewarding experience. And I was helping out the family that owns the dairy, because that's a lot to deal with. I mean, I only just got a taste of it. I was just doing a certain set of tasks, and there's a whole lot to having a dairy, having a farm. So what's really great about being around here, people that have been doing it, there's a lot to learn, and yeah, I guess it's just a way of life. And there's the there's the kind of inclination to be like, oh, you should make a course about that and teach people. And maybe, but you know, and I I help make a lot of courses, you know, that we put up on the market, the autonomy marketplace. But when it comes down to it, if you want to learn stuff about farming, animals, whatever, life on a ranch, you got to find some people that have been doing it, know what they're doing, and you know, you have to have those social skills to be able to kind of make friends and bring some value and ask nicely if they'll show you how it's done. I suppose that's, but volunteering to help when people are in need, that's one way to do it. Anyway, I did get a little footage from putting in some time with the cows this past weekend, and I was pulling it together and thought I'd share it with you guys. So without further ado, let's have a look. I hope this doesn't get me in trouble too, but just don't share this with anybody in Eastern Washington. All right, without further ado, let's see about why you should always have cows around. All right, time to milk some cows. Hello, girls. Good evening. Well, hope you don't mind the light. Come on, no. Come on in.
I love it. Beautiful, man. A lot of, not too dissimilar from home, you know. A few differences.
It's okay.
Just,
It's okay.
I like it. Good people. Yeah, it's Saskatchewan.
Go on.
Or, yeah, funny man.
Go on
Anyways,
in. There you go.
think we want to go with.
Come on, Caps.
I'm
go
lonesome
inside.
but happy.
You ain't here. You
But
did it first
I'm
thing in the morning.
broke, and the good Lord
you
knows
doing?
the reason.
Putting some hay.
I'm just a cowpoke from Cheyenne to Douglas. The ranges I know, 'cause I drift with the wind. No one cares where I go.
Let's go.
I ain't got a dime in these old worn out jeans.
Oh, you're not a
so I
milk.
stop
You're not a milk.
eating steak.
No, sorry. Don't get
Go
up.
back
Don't get up.
to beans. I'll pick up the 10 spot
You're one of the big.
in Prescott. I know riding the Bronx in the
Hard to
big
see.
rodeo.
That's confusing. That's confusing sometimes.
The
snowing all day.
springtime, Philly all fine. I
Getting
might
warm.
spend all the
Gonna be some plowing to do in the morning.
I'll never be branded,
Alright, 1, 2, 3,
never be
4, 5.
told, come and get like
Alright, everybody's there.
in Chapel.
Oh, there we go. Let it out now.
Well, everything is better with some cows around. Living in town sometimes brings me down. Let me bestow this western blessing and leave you cattle bound. May you always have cows around. What else you gonna spend that extra money on? What else is gonna get you up hours before dawn? What else is gonna keep you toiling on and on and on? May you always have cows around. How else you gonna lose it all like great granddaddy did? What else to make sure you leave nothing to your kids? Well, it's too late now, you know it is. You might as well admit that you'll always have cows around. Everything is better with some cows around. Living in town sometimes brings me down. Let me bestow this western blessing and leave you saddle bound. May you always have cows around. What else will make a bishop swear like a sailor might? What else can cause such tension between a man and his wife? What else could ever bring all these enhancements to your life? May you always have cows around. What else is gonna get out when you don't close the gate? What else will make you prematurely show your age? What else will take a run at you in a fit of bovine rage? May you always have cows around. Well, everything is better with some cows around. Living in town sometimes brings me down. Let me bestow this western blessing and leave you cattle down. May you always have cows around. Well, there's Hereford, Highland, Simmental, West Black and Main and Jew, Key and Neiman, Limousine, Shorthorn, Charlotte, Watusi, too, Texas, Longhorn, Corey, Annie, Romagnola, Galloway, and Angus, Brahma, Brangus, Jersey, Guernsey, Holstein, hey! Come on, you know that you got too much time on your hands, and not nearly enough complication in your plans. Well, you need to embrace all of the frustration that you can. May you always have cows around. You might have had to let them dig for oil and gas. You might have had to turn the place into an exotic game ranch. You might have had to do all kinds of things to raise the cash, so you'd always have cows around. Well, everything is better with some cows around. Living in town sometimes brings me down. Let me bestow this western blessing and share what I have found. May you always have cows around. Yeah, may you always have cows around.
That's a wrap.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I got that footage, whipped that up this afternoon. I wanted to share that with you. That was a lot of fun. It was I wouldn't say hard work. It's just a series of steps. I had a checklist, and it's a little challenging. I mean, there's just a few things to get used to. The cows are really sweet. They get used to you, and they're ready twice a day, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. They're ready to be milked. And the cows are funny. They really, I noticed a lot of patterns. The same couple of cows, like they had to go to the right side. And there's one that she went to the front. And then, yeah, another, she won't go to the other side. To if you just let somebody out over there, she's like, no. And I know that video was just one perspective and it's fast forwarded, but I thought that was the best way I could get something to present to you on short notice. And yeah, like there's this one cow that she had like really soft udders, so it didn't seem like she had much milk to give, but then she would just be pumping steadily the whole time. And then these others that feel like they're about to burst, they, it starts flowing and then it stops. So you got 4 going at once, and this is a micro dairy. We're talking 7 cows there, but you can hook up 4 at once. But you got to go around. You got to strip the teat. You clean them, strip them, so get them squirting, basically. And then hook up the pulsators. And yeah, sometimes they're raring to go, and it just starts flowing. But you got to walk around, and you got to pull down on the pulsators, and you got to get it up in there and massage the udders and help it flow. And so that was the challenge, because the milking pays sort of per milking, like a flat rate for the shift. So you're trying to be efficient with your time, but you got to get as much milk out as you can. So you have to go around and help some of them out. And then, yeah, it's tough. I think over time I would get better. I'll probably, start picking up a couple of shifts here and there throughout the week. They have other people that work there, and yeah, strip the teats and fire up the pulsators, man. Exactly. Yeah, it's a funny. If you can get used to it, it doesn't bother me. But yeah, they just drop a pile right there, let loose with a bunch of pee, and they usually give you a clue. They flip their tail up so you can be aware. But you know, I could see where some people couldn't handle that, but then you get over it, I suppose. We're all living creatures. It's funny, I was thinking about when we didn't groom ourselves so much, what it must have been like, and then what changed to make us just be horrified at the thought of smelling raw. Anyway, hope that was enjoyable. I hope that doesn't get me in trouble, so don't share this with anybody. Yeah, I might have to ask for forgiveness. Anyway, what else? Yeah, they're down the road. I know some people have trouble with milk, and I don't know if I overdo it sometimes. I think I was really stressed out last week. I had kind of a scalp issue, and I used to think a lot of dairy did that to me, but I think it might have been stress and lack of sleep. And I could probably be doing a better job with diet. I'm not going shopping often and sort of relying on meals here and there. Well, Biscotti, I wouldn't say it wasn't legal. I'd say I probably should have asked permission. There. Anyway, I should stop talking about that. And moving on. Let's see. I had some other stuff I wanted to share, and I hope this isn't too self-indulgent. Maybe I'll have to change this, because if it's the leftover stream, you know, it's kind of offering something to the Grand Theft World community. So if I need to just do my own thing, be a little more, how do you say? Maybe you understand what I'm saying. So give me some feedback. I mean, I've been checking out some other streams. Somebody recommended to me, geez, what's his name? Adam, are you listening? What's the dude's name that the long stream you sent me? Days of Noah. Anybody familiar with that guy? I just discovered him, and really enjoyed a couple of his streams lately. Days of Noah. That dude, first of all, I got to step up my production. I got to stop stealing Jinx videos. Oh yeah, that's some housekeeping. That intro, that footage intro, that's Jinx footage. And then the music, let me pull that up. Thanks to Rich, he sent that my way. And if you've never come across this guy, highly recommend it. That acoustic guitar music at the beginning is here. Oh, let's get some bed music again. Let me know if that's coming through on the stream through another machine. This is Luca Stricagnoli. Luca Stricagnoli. Somebody help me out with that. I haven't taken Italian. I'd like to. But yeah, he's kind of a one-man band. Just absolutely bringing an amazing amount of tonality and rhythm out of that acoustic guitar. See if I can boost that music up. It's a little different the way I have it running. but I don't want it so loud in my headphones. Anyway, this is funny. The music, it's not this guy playing. I don't know if you could figure that out. Can you tell? I actually just should play another one of his videos. And, because I thought I subscribed to him. Let's see. Yeah, I wanted to check this one out. Seven Nation Army. Let's have a listen here to Luca on the guitar. Oh, yeah. I hope you enjoyed that. Go check that guy out. I'm really glad. I think Rich had shared that in the past. I didn't save it. So I was gonna try and pull up some stuff while that was playing, and then I did something else. Hang on. Tommy Emmanuel. Can't say that I have. What's he play, Dale? He's an alien. Oh my. All right. Let's see. All right. I have a couple memes I wanted to share right quick. Ireland's greatest potato famine. Mao starving the Chinese. Stalin starving the Russian people after declaring farmers the enemy of the people. Same group, folks, behind it all. Same group today. You like eating food and living. Better start paying attention. Same group and control, same plan. Well, I guess that begs the question, who is they? And that's not an easy thing to ponder. Of course, we drop a lot of clues on Grand Theft World, and I don't know that we have a singular entity identified, do we? But Johnny Vedmore was he put out an interesting poll actually the other day. Let me pull that up because I liked what he was doing. I'd like to have Johnny on here, but I think he thinks I'm a clown now because I was posting too many pictures of adult diapers. I don't know what got into me. All right. It was a joke. Okay. Just got carried away. Yeah, so he shared this yesterday. Which is the most powerful organization on earth? The CFR, the World Economic Forum, Freemasons, the church. Oh wow, I voted for World Economic Forum. But then in the comments he was kind of like, hey, you know, I was trying to get people to think a little deeper. And yeah, the CFR created the World Economic Forum, but then, you know, who created the CFR? Maybe the Freemasons. Well, who created the Freemasons? Did that come out of the church? I don't know. I thought that was interesting. He's a sharp dude. He and Whitney do awesome work, obviously. Yeah, I think he was just giving me a hard time. I think he he didn't mind. He's not offended. Why should I care anyway? That's my right. Hey, don't beg anyone to get on the ark. Just keep building and let everyone know the rain is coming. I thought I like this. I mean that's where it's at, right? Building. And hey, days of Noah. I haven't checked out much beyond a couple of his last streams, but he's a believer in Christ. I'm assuming that name is coming from the idea of the flood coming and building an ark. So yeah, I think that's all we can do, right? I mean, you can exit and build. I don't know. Some people think, I had somebody like asking if I was an extremist now on an Instagram post. It was funny. Some dude in California I used to play baseball with. I can't remember what the picture was, but it's something I posted to Instagram. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, is that what I look like? I think it was the domes, like doing some crazy stuff, some hippie stuff. I don't know. Because I'm sure I could be a lot wealthier if I had taken a different path. That's something I want to talk about. If you'll indulge me, I've revisited some stuff about an ancestor, my great grandfather, and it's really moved me a lot. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But here's a couple of stoves that I was learning to use in the middle of episode 109 of Grand Theft World, if you might recall. There was no heat in the building, and this was the option. And yeah, that was fun. I had some help, but I was learning how those stoves, because they both worked a little bit differently, and this one was not efficient. I liked the other one better, but this one just burned so fast and hot, and so you have to just keep throwing wood in it. And as you can see here, that was something that was overlooked. That's plastic, and that sucked, man. I was also concerned with that. So as I'm running up and down the stairs during the show, taking breaks as I could when we played some clips, I'm trying to monitor these things. I realize I don't even know where fire extinguishers are, and everything's gonna be all right. I'm not gonna burn the place down, but got to keep an eye on them. And then it started smelling like shit, because there was plastic burning and it filled up the place. And so then I had to open up doors and windows and let all that nice hot air out so I could get rid of the awful smell. And it all worked out. No harm, no foul, an oversight. Anyway, that was a unique challenge last week because we were trying to figure out how to do this different kind of streaming through remote setup on someone else's computer, and I was late. I was late to prep for that because before all that, before starting the fires, I was trying to get this thing de-iced. This is a freeze stop. This is where we fill up the buffalo water, and I came by, I don't know, it's 5 p.m. or something like that. And there was no water coming out. And I said, oh shit, there was ice, a little bit of ice dripping down right here. So I guess I had not fully closed that off in the afternoon, and that stuff froze because by then it was 13 degrees. So I had to get that freed up, and I found a propane tank and a torch. The propane was empty. I found another tank, and it shot out all kinds of crazy ways, and then it went out. I couldn't get it running again. Had a friend help me get it opened up, and we got it done. Got that thing flowing again, and then I came in here, and it was 40 degrees upstairs in my little studio here. And so I had to start some fires. So my wife doesn't like these stories, but I suppose these are examples of failing your way forward, learning some lessons along the way, and not doing too much damage, thankfully. I mean, that could have been a big project if that had frozen down past the freeze stop. That would have been a big problem. I was trying to avoid that. Anyway, all right, since we're doing self-deprecating shit, shout out to Sir Dave and Dame Laura of the land of venison, cheese, and honey. One of the only two that I've knighted with my special powers on the Grand Theft World podcast. And they very thoughtfully sent me a basket of goodies from their state of Vermont with some nice sausages and really great cheeses. They're wrapped up in wax, and some other goodies, some maple syrup, and I also got a bunch of jam from my stepmom in Maine. And so I was sharing some of these goodies with my buddy, who has a beautiful zebra skin. And I pulled out these dog treats, but I didn't read the package. I didn't read all of it. It said moose scoops, and they were sprinkled with dusted antler dust, moose antler dust. And I think I'd only had a sip or two of whiskey, but I was probably sleep deprived. And anyway, I chomped down on one of those, and it was very crunchy and not very sweet, which I don't like super sweet stuff. But my buddy was like, "Hey, these are dog treats." Oh yeah, that happened. All right. That was a good laugh, though. He tasted some in solidarity and then gave some to the cat. The cat's more like a dog. Seemed appropriate. Anyway, the other day, moving on, Biscotti Biscotti's disgusted. It wasn't a biscotti, I can tell you that. Alrighty. So this is Poe. This is a little bull. He's a short guy. He's a little fella. And I was at the dairy the other morning, and he just came over and he was mad dogging me and just chomping on his chew, whatever he had in his mouth. And he was like watching me feel up all these cow's udders and mad dogging me the whole time. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing with my girls? Oh man. All right, we don't have to look at that, but that's up close and personal. Cow teats are weird. Cow te- It's weird. If you can get over that, it's cow addiction is out of control. Okay. Anyway, I learned to use this the other day. That was pretty sweet. I spent about 2 hours on Friday, 4.5 hours yesterday bouncing around in this thing. And I got into it with this thing. I was using the rabbit mode, just ramming piles of snow into big piles and bouncing around a lot. I actually put the seatbelt on because I was bouncing around too much. I was like, this isn't cool. Some dude cracked a rear view mirror in the other skid steer the other day. And he broke that mirror and left some of his DNA on it. But here's a short clip. Pushing snow. Hours and hours of that. That's just a little taste. But yeah, we got a lot of snow here, and you can see the dome. I'm sad that this didn't. The door is not on, and the stove is not in it. Without Ernie's leadership, I mean, it's there's more to it. It's all good, but I was hoping I'd get to test this dome out, but it seems to be holding up nicely under the snow. It's a good amount of snow, as you can see. It's a lot of snow. There's a buffalo out in the snow yesterday. It was beautiful here. I wanted to take some pictures. And oh yeah, this Ernie needed a picture. He wanted to see how this was holding up in the snow, and that was today. Most of the snow's off, but yeah, that's a 30-foot workshop tent. Ernie had all his equipment in there, and there's 2 more kits for small domes like the chicken dome, the chicken coop dome that we put together. Whoops. And yeah, this is just some views this afternoon. We got a little ground fog, but sun on the mountains and just freaking beautiful. The interesting microclimate in this canyon where I am. And yeah, shit changes and it's beautiful. Oh Lord. So let's see. Shifting gears. Yeah, I forgot about that bed music. That wouldn't have been appropriate for the story, would it? And now I'm going to turn it off again. I wanted to pull up my friend Phoenix. He's part of the autonomy crew. He has logged out of everything. I had to clear the cache in all my browsers to try and solve some problems. I just had been putting it off because then you got to go log back into everything. It just sucks. I know you're not supposed to have passwords saved, but goodness gracious, you know what I'm saying? Like, ugh. All right, I'll deal with that another time. But this is from Phoenix. I like this. We talk about triggering complexity. It's giving you some examples of triggering complexity. But he put together this video. He's been getting into video editing and storytelling. So I want to show this off. Shout out to Phoenix. Hope you're doing well tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Phoenix. Yeah, I thought that was great. It was really, really well planned and executed. Big props. And I thought it did encapsulate very nicely how, especially working with computers, learning video editing, live stream production, content creation, whatever you want to call it. You have to really push through a lot of discomfort sometimes, and it's funny how thinking can feel painful at times, and I got to think about how to do this, and you just want to get to where, oh man, I just do this, and this, but you got to learn through that. And that's one thing Rich teaches about, and it seems very simple and basic, but we all get kind of comfortable with what we're doing, and then when we want to learn something new, we really have to we really have to want to learn it and push through that discomfort. And it doesn't last too long. And if you can learn to recognize that, that's when you're growing, is when you feel the overwhelm. So you kind of get into something, you're like, okay, figure out this and this and what's this called, and put this here. And then it gets like, oh, great. And I experienced this at the dairy. Like, it took me a few sessions, a few shifts to get in the flow and the gates. The video didn't show it very well, but there's gate controls to you open up the stalls, and then you let one in, and then you got to close it at the right time. Otherwise another one will come in. So I was making some mistakes. Anyway, you work through that overwhelm, and then you get comfortable again. Like, okay, you level back up. I mean, I hope I'm not butchering it, but I think you get what I'm saying. And I loved what Phoenix did there with that. Many such experiences I've had in the past couple of years with video editing and just computers in general. And computers can be so frustrating. And sometimes you just put it to sleep and turn it back on, and then it works. And so I appreciated the changing. He demonstrated changing the way you look at things. Go out, get the body moving. Your brain changes. You'll get different perspective. You refresh, clean up. You feel better, and then you change your approach just by letting your subconscious stew on it, and kind of giving yourself a little reset and coming back to it. Yeah, nothing good comes easy. Exactly right. So awesome video, Phoenix. I can't wait to see what he does as he continues to do this sort of stuff. I think he's pulling clips from the Do It Live. Speaking of which, yeah, I should bring that up. Because the other couple weeks ago, when I went to Spokane to take Candace back to the airport, then I went to a coffee shop in Spokane, and it worked out really nicely. But I was helping produce this autonomy Do It Live podcast. So Saturday mornings, students get together, and they have they run a little podcast, and it's talking about stuff during the week from the autonomy course. It's after the lecture on Friday night that Rich does. And Carly that week was hosting it. And she asked me to support. And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. But then it was going to be complicated because I knew I'd be in Spokane. They said, let me try and make it happen. I'll have my laptop. I'll do what I can. So that was a good experience for me because I have a laptop. It's very powerful. I tried to get it to match the capabilities of the desktop that I have, and it should. On paper, it should, but it's got. I installed Windows 11 on it, and I still need to back everything up and wipe it and try to run it with Windows 10. I don't know. I could have gotten ripped off. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna tell you how much I threw down for that. You can message me if you want. It's a little embarrassing, and it's not paying for itself. Let me put it that way. Anyway, so I set up shop and I found the perfect spot in downtown Spokane. Had a little conference room. You could just book, and I just got a cup of coffee and hung out and got set up and then helped Carly do this. So I thought I'd play a few minutes of it. I haven't watched back, but we'll see. We'll see. I think it got edited, but it was definitely a challenge. I was trying to do what I do very smoothly on this computer from a laptop with one screen, and with a headset that the way it was routed, the audio engine, I heard myself on a delay, so it made me feel inebriated. It's in an early episodes of Grand Theft World, it may have sounded the same way because it was a similar setup, and there's always a slight delay to my audio and my headphones. Anyway, that's enough. Let's just check out a couple of minutes of this, and Carly was awesome. So I don't want to say like it was a mess or anything, and it was a challenge for me on the back end, an example of working through persistence despite resistance. Let's go.
Hi. Oh, intro. That's Lauren Stiggs. Okay. Hi, my name is Carly Vernon. Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
You can. Okay. My name's Carly Vernon, and I'd like to welcome you to the Do It Live Autonomy podcast. Today is Saturday, November 26, 2022. And this week's theme is parenting, yourself and others. Though he needs no introduction, I'd like to introduce my co-host. He works in the background doing mysterious and magical things that keep the Grand Theft World podcast rolling smoothly. You can imagine how pleased I was when he agreed to co-host with me. Lawrence Driggs, also known as LD, you're joining us from the state of Washington on the Pacific Northwest side of the United States. Can you come out from behind the camera and tell us a little bit about yourself?
I certainly can. Yes, I'm coming to you live from a coffee shop in Spokane, Washington. Yeah, I'm a freelance video editor, live stream producer, publisher, working with the Autonomy Unlimited team, Grand Theft World podcast team. All right, and a few on pause. This is why I said Spokane, because in the park outside the coffee shop, there was this graffiti that I'd seen just before that, and it reminded me of the ghosties that you see on Twitter, people flirting with that. Anyway, that's what I meant by Spokane. I didn't explain myself. Others out there, and yeah, I've been living up on a ranch for a couple of months up here in Northeast Washington, and living a different kind of life, and just got to share a little bit of that, a taste of it with my wife, Candace. We've been geographically separated for a couple of months, but I think she's ready to get out of California and come check out life up here. So it's a real pleasure to be with you today. Thanks so much for asking me to ride shotgun with you.
Well, thank you for agreeing. And I'm thrilled that Candace decided that she's going to head your way. That's great news.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Well, we've got an amazing lineup of guests and content to fill your hearts and your minds. So let's talk about what our audience can expect in today's lineup, shall we, LD? As we mentioned, the theme is your parenting yourself and others. Today, we'll be talking the heart. We'll be getting to some advice and guidance for remaining calm and steady in uncomfortable conversations. And we'll be introducing the newest group in our forum, parenting. And lastly, we'll be having a bit of show and tell as the members of autonomy community share some of their new skills. So stick around to the end so you don't miss a beat. LD, we've officially entered the holiday season here in the US. Thursday was Thanksgiving. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was fantastic. Yeah, it was a real pleasure. Went to 3 different places on Thanksgiving after, a bunch of preparation the day before and the day of, and was feeling very blessed to be included with a bunch of great people, many new faces, a few I'd seen around a bit, but meeting many people, and it was really a special day.
Wow, 3 places. That's pretty awesome.
How was that? Yeah, well, it was all the same neighborhood. It wasn't that bad, but
Not a long drive.
the tight schedule. How was your Thanksgiving?
Mine was really good. I had a 2-hour drive to go see my boys and their dad and spend the day. And we had a lovely meal, a hike, and another 2-hour drive back home with a full belly. So, and a full heart. So it was good. It was good.
Very nice.
So the holidays are opportunities for friends and family to gather and have deep and meaningful experiences and discussions. For many, and especially within the last almost 3 years, these are also potential times of stress, argument, and polarization. Lately, conversations with meaning require some eggshell maneuvering, as they're potentially explosive, especially when we're emotionally and logically unprepared. When this is the case, the topics are more like grenades, and a volatile environment could pull the pin, truncating the family tree, spewing bitter shrapnel in the hearts of all. When we enter these scenarios, it's wise to be well-versed and well-armed for potential conflict, to diffuse the wick of the gaslight and calm the emotional storms. So let's listen as Richard and Bob Podolsky discuss a tool of insight that we can put in our armory.
Yeah, well, first of all, when someone makes a declarative statement, one of the first things I like to do, and I've only recently gotten good at it, is respond with, "What makes you say that?" And that seems like a really simple-minded kind of response, but the fact is, it changes the whole tone of the conversation, because whereas I've been told to accept an idea, by asking that question, I now have what the Japanese call sente. I have the initiative in the conversation now, and the other person is called upon to substantiate what they just said, if they can. They can't always. So it's a very good clarifying question. What makes you say that?
And it does 2 things simultaneously. It satiates Bob's need for clarification on why do they believe this, or why do they have this perspective? But it also presents that clarification request in a way that's curious and not judgmental about their position.
Right. I don't take a stand on their position.
Right. So it sounds like you're actually interested in their position and might adopt it if they do a good job of explaining it, which should be the position we're in. We shouldn't have predetermined conclusions. So Bob's just simply taking the lead. He's being a leader, and he's initiating, if this conversation is going to be valuable and you want me to store that as information, I need this question answered. Otherwise, I'm dropping it like it's hot.
Okay. My second comment is that most of the conditioning that we're subject to takes place at the subconscious level. And Desmet's work is a good illustration of how that comes about. I'm sure you're familiar with it. Basically, what I say is, you have to, if you're going to do something about that, you have to address it at the same level at which this dynamic takes place. In other words, you have to be able to communicate with people directly to their subconscious mind. This means knowing the basic skills of hypnosis. because that's what's going on. It's a form of hypnosis, and
that they're
hypnosis.
already under, right?
Yes,
And you're saying
yes.
if you want to help them unravel that, you got to deal with the level at which that knot is tied.
Exactly, because if you don't, they will have selective deafness. They literally will not be able to hear what you're saying. You try to give them some rational explanation of your point of view, and you might as well be talking to a stone. They can't hear you because that's what they've been subconsciously taught, to be selectively deaf and blind. So this is why Desmet calls that phenomenon a psychosis, because usually psychosis is diagnosed as the sort of as a prima facie evidence for psychosis is people see things that aren't there, they hear things that aren't being said to them, or they feel physical sensations for which there is no physical stimulus, or the opposite. They fail to see things, they fail to hear things, and they fail to feel things that they should be letting in that sensory input, but they don't. They cannot do that. And so this hypnotic conditioning is literally the installation of a psychosis in the person who's the victim of it.
Okay,
and it turns out that
okay. So I found this piece really helpful in a few ways. First, Bob's explanation of selective deafness allows us to appreciate that whatever's going on is not to be taken personally. It has nothing to do with you. They really just can't hear. And as a child of a mother that had selective memory, I can appreciate this shift in perspective and how it allows empathy and compassion to take a seat at the table, diffusing anger. LD, hey, do you happen to know anyone with selective hearing or selective memory?
I know a couple people. Yeah, it's funny how that works.
It is funny. Well, and then that knowledge gives you a little more compassion, right? They're not, maybe it's not so selective.
Indeed.
So this discussion also points out the importance of you being able to reply to the same type of inquiry. What makes you say that? We want to trigger complexity on both sides of the conversation instead of dropping a bomb. When complexity unifies, this is where creative ideas and solutions are synthesized. And I believe this week's Red Slide Integration Challenge addresses that. But before we go there, let's talk a little bit about self-parenting, parenting the self. Holiday is made up of two words, holy and day. Holidays and family are a time holidays and family time are an opportunity for us to combine the intelligence of our minds with the intelligence of our hearts, the whole or holy self. This has never been more important than in these wakeful and wokeful moments. It's not just the nuclear family that's in jeopardy. We're faced with the attempted destruction of the family of humanity. And here's where parenting ourself takes precedence, because we all know the airline warning to put on the oxygen mask first before we can assist anyone else. So this is where heart rhythm coherence comes in. The heart has its own intrinsic nervous system, often referred to as the heart's brain. Research at the HeartMath Institute has discovered that communication between the heart and the brain is dynamic. We can command the activity level of the brain from the heart by entering into a coherent state with the rhythm of the heart. This is recommended as the first line of defense, even before breath work. Heart coherence is not a state of relaxation, but rather one of calm alertness, and the perfect state to be in when we're about to step onto the field of grenades in the battle of a lifetime. So let's hear what HeartMath Institute has to say about this.
Research shows that when we shift into a coherent state, the heart and brain operate synergistically, like two systems that mesh into one. We can learn how to activate and sustain the synergy between the heart and brain and prevent stress-producing patterns, along with increasing our mental clarity and discernment capacity. When we do this, our creative solutions for personal, social, and global challenges become more accessible, providing us with more intuitive access and flow. Over the past 20 years, the Institute techniques that are intentionally simple and based on scientific research. Our mission theme is to simplify a process for intuitive connection to the soul's wisdom and guidance for unfolding who we truly are. New research suggests that our energetic or spiritual heart is an access point for our natural inner technology, the heart's intuitive intelligence, which can elevate our communications, decisions, and choices to a much higher level of effectiveness. One interesting finding from our research is that when people hold genuine core heart feelings such as appreciation or compassion, it naturally increases their heart coherence. We use the term energetics to refer to the systems that we can't see or touch. For example, our thoughts, emotions, and intuitions. The mind and heart feelings are energetic sources that underlie our thoughts and emotions. They are primary drivers of our biological systems and have a powerful influence on our behaviors, choices, and results. The intuitive, energetic heart is what people have associated with their inner voice throughout history. From our perspective, the energetic heart communicates a steady stream of intuitive information to the mind and brain, which in most cases we only use a small percentage of, because our ego choices overrides the intuitive suggestion. Access to our heart's intuition varies among people, yet we all have it. As we learn to slow down our mind and attune to our deeper heart feelings, our natural intuitive connection can occur. Intuition is like energetic gold. Intuitive insights often unfold more understanding of ourselves, others, issues, and life than years of accumulated knowledge. That's why the state of coherence is rapidly gaining interest. In this state, more and more people are reporting increased access to their heart's intuitive guidance, realizing it's within them. And with a little practice, it's easier to access than they thought.
So I highly recommend watching the remainder of that video, that clip, which you can find on the Heart Math Institute's website, or maybe we can put a link to that at the bottom of this video, this podcast. So how does one achieve heart coherence? It's very simple. Place your hand on your heart and listen. Dr. Stephen Porges, the man who introduced the polyvagal theory, recommends to count 60 beats. I don't know if that heart rhythm slide is accessible.
Yeah, did we miss the proverb or?
Nope, that's next. We
Okay.
didn't miss it. Oh, I guess you're right. I switched it. Sorry, everybody. I switched the,
No problem.
yeah, that one. There he goes.
Get this up
There we
here.
go. That was my bad. My personal experience says that that's just the beginning count. And over time, you become constantly aware of the wisdom in the beat of the drum of the heart. When counting and acknowledging the beats, by default, your brain is listening to your heart. And the heart brain takes the wheel of the autonomic nervous system. And as we move into the following segment, I invite you to take a beat and listen to your heart. Because as the Native American proverb says, there we go. Now we can put that next slide up. Or the first slide. Listen to the wind, it talks. Listen to the silence, it speaks. Listen to your heart, it knows.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that. For a number of reasons. Carly was great. She had an outline and links, and that was, well, it was really great reviewing that, because my experience for me, it was challenging and frustrating, not really being able to do what I'm used to being able to do. I I was doing my best, and as you can see, there's some technical things that just, from my standpoint, was frustrating. And I'll admit, like, I wasn't very present in the discussion and really appreciating what she was talking about. And it's something I need to try and work on. Um, because it's the same way doing Grand Theft World with a lot of stuff we cover. I'm sometimes I'm really not processing what we're talking about, and I'm more um, focused on technical stuff and making sure there's no issues. And I suppose I get distracted by the chat, but that is I call it like weaponized ADD or something. That um, there's value to that. I keep in touch with the people in the chat, and there's good feedback there, and an interaction. But that's my experience usually is more on that kind of stuff. So that situation was an interesting challenge for me, um, and I'd like to be able to do what I do on the road more readily. And unfortunately, that requires, like, can you haul around extra monitors? I don't know. So, but if you like that, if you wanted to see more, you can find the Autonomy Students and Graduates YouTube channel. And every week during the autonomy season, you can check out a new episode over there. Every week it's a new student. I think Phoenix just led it the following week. And there's a lot of hidden value in that, and it's just people taking a stab at doing something they've never done before usually. And it's kind of cool because we're used to highly I mean, I think the Grand Theft World crowd probably appreciates it. Most people appreciate the content and Rich and Tony's commentary over a highly produced package, and I do the best I can with kind of the budget we work with and the limitations we have being geographically scattered. But I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. I think. Let me know what you think. And if you're not familiar with autonomy, and you're curious, you can check out my Liberty links in the description. There's a link you can follow. If you checked out that link, it helps support my efforts. But getautonomy.info/ignite. You can learn more about Rich's autonomy course and check out the obstacle course. I think that's what it takes you to. That it will give you a pretty good understanding of what it's all about and what value you could get out of it. So, if you're here, maybe you hear from Grand Theft World, you probably heard all about it. But that's where it is. The getautonomy.info/ignite. So let's see. Shift gears again. Man, I keep forgetting the bed music. I need like a little cattle prod. Little zapper. Somebody needs to zap me when it's time to turn the music on. Or we could just not do it. Let me know what you think. Hopefully you're still awake, unless you need to be asleep, and then I hope you're asleep. But I guess you're listening in at some point when you feel like it. Okay, I wanted to play a few more things. Not too much. But my buddy Afix, aka producer Mike, he spoke at the End of Slavery Summit a couple weeks ago, and I wasn't able to check it out, but I got a link from him about his speech. He was speaking about IT security, I guess, you know, in the perspective of people doing what we do and the information war and helping free minds. So let's check this out. Producer Mike, Afix, I guess it's an interview for the End of Slavery Summit. Let's have a look.
Hello and welcome to the End of Slavery Summit. I'm your host, Corey Andrelot, here with Aaron Butler as my co-host and a special guest, somebody who is Mark Passio's producer. I'm going to have him introduce himself. Go ahead, Mike. Also, you go by the name of Afix. Introduce yourself.
Sure. Hey, Corey. Thanks for having me. Aaron, pleasure to meet you. Yeah, so, and to be totally clear, I am not currently Mark's producer. He's been doing it solo this past bunch of months, and so that's all on him. But when we had the whole live video studio, I was there switching cameras and that kind of thing. I've been programming for 24 years and worked as a senior software engineer for the last few, just regular software engineer back till at least 2014, if not earlier. And Corey asked if had anything to talk about. And one thing that I think is constantly overlooked, especially in our circles, is privacy and security. So
yeah, we're going to talk about streetwise privacy and security. So for people who are kind of unaware or people who already know about some things, you definitely have expertise in a lot of different things, because we've talked before about like a lot of alternative solutions. Like we talked about gold and silver. We talked briefly about like security and privacy and previous times we talked, but it'll be cool to go a little bit deeper in this. You actually sent us, Aaron and I, both a video called To Protect and Infect, right? And this was by a guy that you said is connected to Snowden.
So yeah, so it's the presenter is Jacob Applebaum, and the talk is at the Chaos Communication Conference. I think it's the 30th one, or Chaos Communication Congress, forgive me, which is part of the Chaos Computer Club. It's their yearly hacker conference, if you will, and in my opinion, it's probably one of the best ones they have. That happens every year. It's between Christmas and New Year's, and so this one actually took place in, Aaron, I don't know if he had mentioned this to you, in the end of 2013. And so basically, as he's giving this talk, Applebaum worked with WikiLeaks and Laura Poitras, and they were basically in the process of getting Snowden out of America while this talk was happening, but nobody really knew it yet. And so all the Snowden stuff actually kind of started to dump shortly after that. So most of what he's showing in that talk are like the top secret slides and things like that are actually, a chunk of those come from those leaks and from stuff that WikiLeaks had kind of gained from that. And so a little technical, but and he has been since Me Too'd for various other reasons. So unfortunately, you don't see many talks from him anymore. But it's funny how you see somebody that comes out and says some stuff that might, I don't know, put a dent in the armor, and all of a sudden they disappear and don't give talks anymore. Anyway, sorry, a little bit of an aside there.
No, I think it was really cool. Like I watched all of it. I think Aaron watched it multiple times. Sure, right, Aaron?
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty cool.
It's pretty dense. But you know, he does a good job at explaining it, and there were just some of the stuff I already knew, you know, and granted it's been years since that video has came out, but yeah, just some stuff that are really had me shaking a little bit, you know. It's angering as well that, you know, some of the people have this power to just violate anyone's privacy.
Yeah, I'll have it there for people if they want to get access to this talk. It's free, it's online, and it's on this website that you said they're like a conference. They do this often.
Yep, they've got tons of, so it's media.ccc.de, and that is where they'll have basically all the conference talks for the last however many years. I want to say back to like 24 or 22, and that was 30. So it's like even a bunch of years prior to that. And it's all self-hosted. There's different like audio translations that they do live for the German speakers because it's usually in like Berlin. And yeah, that's pretty much. One thing that Aaron just mentioned that I think is worth keeping in mind this whole time is, or at least when talking about this talk, is the stuff they're discussing is from 2013. So we're talking, I mean, that's, Jesus, that really, no, I was gonna say 15, no, 9 years ago. Or no, almost a decade ago, basically.
Yeah.
So like, if it seems mind-blowing now, it was really mind-blowing then, and who knows what they have nowadays.
Right.
Right.
So it's worth keeping that in mind.
Yeah, and how fast is technology evolving? Is humanity going to be able to keep up with it? I'm going to ask you some questions along these lines as well. I mean, I think we got to be careful of technology so much as the authority positions in this world, right? I mean, because robotics, we can program to think certain ways, and they can last forever, potentially. I mean, right? This interview, what we do online, does it last forever?
Are you honestly asking that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think it's probably safe to say that almost anything that's gone over the trunk, like even phone lines back to like 87, is basically probably stored somewhere. I don't have evidence for that, but that's my belief based on some of the stuff that I've heard from people that are much smarter than I.
And is it true that
couple
like
things involving the capture that I want to get? There's a couple things involving the capture that I think come back to all that, and that's something that I really hope that anybody watching this comes out of this understanding. Like I believe privacy is security. Like, and kind of to put that really simply, it's like if no one knows where you hide your gold, it's pretty hard for them to take it from you. So in that sense, your privacy is your security, and I think it's a pretty good way to think about it. And I have a couple other examples we'll get into that are much more recent.
Okay, yeah, I like that that view of it. So security and the need to be secure, because some people will say, "Well, I have nothing to hide," right? Like, oh, like I have nothing to hide. Like everybody, I'm sure, has something to hide. Personally, like there would come to some extent where it's like, yeah, they're breaching upon my rights. They're breaching upon who I am as an individual. Would you want somebody constantly staring you down all the time, thinking and judging you based on what you're doing?
Anyone who says the phrase "they have nothing to hide," I would simply ask them. I mean, the obvious answer is what's your bank password? But the next obvious answer is then why do you wear pants, or like have blinds on your windows, or close your stall door in the bathroom, or like wear headphones instead of blaring everything you're listening to on a speaker? I mean, all of these things are in the sense protecting our own privacy, like for various reasons. Even if it's just because we don't want to be like embarrassed or just feel goofy, it's like that is privacy, and in certain cases, like in the blinds on your Windows case, that's also security. So
yeah, don't you think it also has to do with control, right? The lack of security, because if you don't have control over your own life and what goes on within your own life and what you see and what other people see, then are you really in control of your own life? Tying back to the idea of slavery,
right? Or you think in the communist societies, it's like privacy of a conversation could send you to a gulag. I mean,
social credit,
and that's
like another one.
Security.
Another one he mentioned in the video is, most people, whether or not their reasoning for ignoring it is, I got nothing to hide. Another one, it comes down to self-worth, and people think, oh, I'm not important enough to be tracked or to be, totally, have all your rights totally out the window when it comes to privacy. And, a lot of people don't think that they're even worth anything. They don't recognize what they are.
That's a brilliant point. Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, you have value, straight up. You have value. Maybe you don't think it, but other people do. I can almost guarantee it. And whether it's just like the store owner you buy stuff, pack of smokes from every week or whatever, like, you know what I mean? Like you have value to people around you. We all do, I think, in some ways. Some more than others, whatever, but that's not the point. The point is that, like, yeah, like, and even if right now you have nothing to say for it, or let's say, God forbid, 20 years from now, you decide to be a politician and actually have a shot. It's like all that stuff they captured 20 years ago, that'll find its way back real quick. And so, like, it doesn't necessarily, there's a whole like time gap too between when things happen and when they may be used against you. And so kind of further, in my opinion, like establishes the point of like, you got to be on top of this. Like you can't just let it go because it'll bite you when you least expect it. I mean, I feel like with the Me Too stuff, that's a great example. It's like there's all sorts of stuff where it's like, oh, I didn't realize somebody recorded like Trump with the whole grab him by the whatever. And it's like, well, he didn't expect that one to get out, but it did. It totally did. And there are people that to this day absolutely hate his guts for that, no matter
And
what.
some people might see that as good, right? Like, oh, well, it
True.
means you have to be more careful of what you do in your daily life. But other people might say, well, no, it's like, why not just have fun and be private and do whatever you want, you know, without anybody knowing? Because, you know, that's where the dangerous freedom comes in, as Jefferson would say, versus peaceful slavery. Right? It's not everything is just bland and the way people expect things to be. Like we live in tolerance and everything is this way and that way. No, it's like, what if you break the rules here and there? What if you say something edgy, right? You're not as robotic. You're not as easy to control.
And then, and to your point with the founding fathers, is that standard kind of like, oh, I'll give a little bit of this up for more security or whatever. And it's like, oh, I'll give up a little bit of, like, yeah, it's like, oh, I'll give up a little bit of privacy to Facebook for the convenience. I'll give a little bit of security up to whatever. But it's like every time we're giving up that privacy, we should think of that as giving up security too. I mean, I think they're really synonymous in most ways. If you just think a couple steps out.
Yeah, that quote that you that's right. There's another quote, right? If you give up a little freedom for a little security, you deserve neither and lose both. Yeah, that one's right on topic with what we're talking about, I would say. And I hope for most people, like you said, you kind of like hammered down some of the subliminal things, the things people don't realize that they do to hide their privacy. But there's things that everybody, I think, reaches a point where it's like, I don't want my rights to be breached when, I don't want my rights to be breached when some people don't want their rights being breached at all. Like, don't enter my life, don't be involved at all, but at least they have the choice, the ability to have that choice. If they don't have that choice, if something is being surveyed upon them without their permission, without their consent, is that slavery?
Yeah. And I mean, we're increasingly getting into a world where it's like privacy extends not just into like your body and video or audio of you, but like to your thoughts. I mean, we're increasingly getting really close to that, where I'll bet you there's a good percentage of America where they open up google.com and Google knows what they're about to search for. Or maybe they type one character. It's like, but Google has connection with advertisers. They know the ad that just hit the TV that they also hit them on the phone with or whatever. And it's like, they know what they just searched on Android. And so like, they know what you're about to look up. And then you go Neuralink type, like Elon Musk. It's like, they literally will be in your brain before you freaking know it. So that's a whole nother conversation. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but I think it's thinking ahead. It's coming. It's coming one way or another, I think.
Well, I do want to say, I think technology is powerful, right? I mean, we use it to communicate now and to help share this information with people. It could be used for both good or bad, depending on the user. It's just a tool. It's not conscious, right? Maybe it will think it's conscious as it evolves, but can it ever be? I mean, these are the questions I think humanity has to ask themselves. Like, is it true that technology operates through these crystals, like the quartz crystals, like our screens and the memory? Is that true? I mean,
radio absolutely does. That's for sure.
Because a lot of people, talk about how you can speak to these crystals and, you do these rituals and you power them, and you charge them, and because of the electricity and how energy works in our world.
I'm not going to get into the crystal thing. That's not my jam. But I did have like a little build your own radio kit thing when I was a kid, and it did definitely involve like a quartz crystal as like the diode, I think is the right term for kind of how some of it worked. It has to do with like the structure of it. Anyway, so I was kind of curious as far as the video, just to kind of start there. General thoughts on it, any kind of stuff that you guys maybe wrote down or had questions about, or just that struck you as, I don't know, particularly impactful or anything?
I definitely, I think the scale is always very surprising, because I think most people think it's very localized and very, company oriented or entity institutional oriented, whereas he explains in that video how it's all planetary. It's everything. It's not like it's just a couple, ones and zeros. It's the whole shebang. And that's super scary.
Yeah, the subtitle of that presentation is the militarization of the internet. I mean, that, that just tells you right now. I have
Yeah.
some notes that I just jotted down. Like he mentioned that journalists get spied on and they can get arrested for basically truth telling. You know, for finding things and for doing what the government is allowed to do, right? And the NSA has 13 ways of surveillance, and they use all of them. People are becoming more vulnerable as time goes on, not less. And from nearly 8 miles away, even with drones, TSA can attack a computer. They can put stuff in without you knowing, completely free and nothing. And they know about vulnerabilities built into the computers and keep them a secret. So like Intel and all these companies that produce the parts for those computers, these government branches and agencies, they know how to ultimately infiltrate them because it's a mainly consumed product. Like everybody's got Intel or AMD, everybody's got these certain parts in their computer. So it could be easy if they each have something that they share.
And yeah, that last one is really important to keep in mind, is the consolidation of the hardware manufacturers. And there are there aren't open source processors, really. There actually are. RSCV is it's actually like a templating. It's like you can essentially program what the processor does and have like an open source template of, hey, I want to make, I don't know, really good at math, but like maybe it suffers doing language processing or whatever. And but you can kind of make these like considerations or whatever. But it's open source. I can send it to you. You can print that thing on a chip or reprogram it or whatever. And that's awesome. It's not nearly as performant, and obviously not everything supports it. So like there has to be software built to handle that architecture. And for the most part, like people don't realize like their hard drive's constantly writing errors. Like there's errors constantly happening, but your Windows talks to the firmware, and the firmware talks to the hardware, and the firmware is just saying, no, we're good, just keep getting this to the data. And it's like, okay, back behind the scenes, it's like shuffling to figure everything out and make sure it's like, okay, we got a bad sector over here, we need to move data, we have to handle, like there's so much stuff that and say you're working with a cloud-based instance, so you're renting a computer from Amazon or whatever, you have even less access to it. I mean, you really can't ever dig in and see what's going on under the hood. And so there's plenty of talks out there where people hunt down these crazy bugs and they're like, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, this code on this machine acts really different and sucks. And then all of a sudden somebody spends 6 months looking at it, and it's like they end up having to call Amazon and be like, hey man, can you just like move this to the other box? Like something's broken here. It's like, oh, actually, yeah, you're right. The network card was bad. It was flipping every 54th bit or something. It's like, it's crazy little stuff. There's another guy who did a whole talk on bit squatting a while ago, where it's like, okay, Facebook's ad networks were on like fbcdn.net or whatever, but he knew that like there was a propensity for a certain common router to flip the fourth bit. So he would like buy like fbgdn.net or whatever. And within like a week or two, all of a sudden, like Facebook, just by the nature of like routers getting hot somewhere on the planet, instead of Facebook serving ads from their server, they're serving ads from his server like 1,000 times in a couple of days. And it's like just these really, really obscure, strange attacks. And we're not even getting into like hydroelectric dams connected to the internet, or like ancient travel flight booking and hotel booking systems. I mean, like that stuff literally predates the internet. It has never been able to turn off. So it's still all in 6 bits. So like when you give your email address to hotel.com, it's actually still like the @ symbol is stored with 2 slashes, because it's all meant to be in 6 bits for punch cards, because they've literally never been able to turn this thing off since the 60s, because flights keep getting booked and hotels keep. So that's a bit of a tangent, but like there are these legacy systems. There's a lack of access, there's lack of control. There's just many different layers to these everyday things that are kind of hidden behind the surface, but most of them, when you hear them, you're like, that makes sense. Well, what else are you gonna do? Tell everybody to just don't book flights for a day? It's like around the whole world. It's like, that ain't gonna happen. So anyway, sorry, back to what you were saying. Sorry.
Yeah, no, those are good points. I would have a question based upon like you were going into like open source stuff, and I'm definitely a fan of a lot of open source stuff, and we can get into a little bit more of that later
Richard
on.
Stallman would appreciate that you're using Jitsi because it is free as in Libre, not free as in beer. Well, it also is free as in beer. That's besides the point. Anyway.
So, like, you know, where does the line be drawn here? Because there's a lot of people going into tech, right? Like I know a lot of people who are building computers and they're working on all this tech stuff, and you're saying, yeah, they're doing it for money and such, potentially because the market is heading there. But where is it? Who's the people that want to spy on everybody and collect all their data? Is there something going on here? You know, is it just the government agencies? Is it just the governments? Why are they trying to collect people's data?
We'll quiz Aaron on this one. Hey, Aaron, what do you do after you have all the money? What do you use the money to get?
Control power. You want to keep the money?
Bingo. You don't even care about the money. You just use the money
Right.
as a way to get power.
Yeah.
I get the money is just a tool. So yeah, so it's not. Yeah, you can make a boatload of money doing it. Don't get me wrong, but like, I mean, especially if you know what everyone's thinking or like what everyone's last Google search is. I mean, hell, it's pretty useful info against a lot of people. Whether it's just telling you, I mean, it doesn't even necessarily have to mean as a way to blackmail somebody, but it could also mean as a way to sell them something, find your targets. You know what I mean? Like you can, there are, in the same way that you can be like altruistically selfish. Like it's like, oh yeah, I like give the homeless guy like a cigarette when I walk out of 7-Eleven so